Hi everyone, my name is Paul. I've been looking on the internet for some information about either the Sena or the Cardo, which is best, and specifically matching it with the Boom GTS radio with the WHIM. And I found some interesting things, so I thought I'd share them with you because it's a long process to get to the bottom of it, but I finally concluded what the issue is and how it can be resolved. So I thought I'd share that with you with the big question, which is better, the Cardo or the Sena? And we're going to answer that today. So to be clear, let's start with the basics. Here we have a 2019 FLH TK, so that's the Ultra, and it has a Boom GTS radio. The Boom GTS radio came out around 2019 and lasted for about 5 years on the market with most of the motorcycles until 2024 when the new Skyline came out. So everything I'm going to speak to you about today is specifically related to the Boom GTS. So the first question is, so what is a WHIM that you may have heard of? Well, simply stated is, the WHIM is a module, which is the wireless headset integrated module. This module, what it does is it turns your Boom GTS radio into a wireless transmitter, if you want to call it that way. So if you plan to have a wireless headset where you can communicate with your friends, for example, with the Sena, you need this. Now, do you need it to communicate with your friends? No. But if you want to communicate with your friends, you want to have Apple CarPlay, you want to listen to the music and control it from the controls on the bike, and so on, then you need this WHIM. There's no way around it. So yes, you can just listen to the radio, and yes, with just the Sena you can communicate, but the WHIM makes it that you get all of it integrated and you can hear it on your headset. So this WHIM itself is something that is sold separately by Harley. How does it work? Well, simply you need to remove the cowling. There's a plug in the back. You get the module, you install it. There's a dedicated plug. You just plug it in. Then it's self-powered from there. And then the wire, there's a long wire that comes with it, which allows you to run it, for example, under the gas tank to the back, which is an extension. So when you want to do an update for the software, you can just plug your laptop to it, hook it up, and you can update this WHIM module so you can have the latest software built in. So that's what a WHIM is all about, which brings us to the big question. So the radio itself and the WHIM seems to have been created pretty well with the Sena in mind. Why? Because for many years that was the only wireless headset from Harley-Davidson that could be communicated with it. So I need to be clear. If you want all the benefits from your Harley, including stereo sound in your headset, then you need to get the Harley brand. Yes, you can go out and buy the Sena, but there'll be some downsides, mostly software, so it won't be as complete. You're not going to have all the benefits that you would get if you get the Harley version of it. So yes, that's how Sena and Harley set it up. So that being said, once you have this Sena headset, may it be, for example, this 20 Evo set or the 50S, or there's a 30K out there from Harley-Davidson with different features and benefit. The big benefit you're going to get now is that when you have that in your helmet, you'll be able to communicate with all your friends. You'll be able to use Apple CarPlay. You're going to be able to use Siri. You're going to be able to use Google Maps. Anything that CarPlay offers you, you're going to have it on your screen on your motorcycle. That's a big benefit. The issue that I've had recently is the 20S that I had. For some reason, I don't know if it was related specifically to this one, but what would happen is every time I would ask Siri for something by saying, "Hey Siri," or activate it through the buttons, my passenger's microphone would be activated and so would mine. So when I'm asking Siri for something, I would hear the wind in her microphone plus my instructions to Siri, and it would just be a whole mess. I tried to update the software in the WHIM. I updated the software in the Boom GTS. I updated the software in the headset. You name it, I did it. Same issue. Communicated with Sena, explained to them what the issue was. Of course, I'm the only person on the planet that had this issue. They were never able to tell me what we can do to resolve it. So I went on to the next step, which is what brings me to today. So I figured if I'm going to change this, you know what, let's just drop the Sena brand and let's get the new Freecom 4X Harley-Davidson branded, because now the new 2024 Harleys that are out have the new skylight. So I figured this is going to be a brilliant move. Finally, we're going to have something better, and it's going to work better than the Sena. Big surprise. So what happens is I purchased this. It's in Canada here, it's around $750. I got the Harley brand to make sure everything would be compatible. This is what I found of it. So you can connect this to the WHIM. In other words, you can control the Hey Siri, you can control the radio, you do get CarPlay, you get that. Oddly enough, what you lose is the wireless communication between you and your passenger, wirelessly, and all your team friends. So if you have 6 friends, you're not going to be able to communicate with them. That's the bad side. The good side is you can communicate with the bike, but you can't communicate with your passengers. Totally useless, you have to agree. So my conclusion of this is, if you're going to get the Cardo Harley-Davidson brand, you're going to have the benefit of communicating with your bike, but nobody else. So that's a total loss. I'm sure with the 2024 Skyline radio and the new Harley-Davidson, I'm sure everything's working fine over there. I haven't tried it. I'm not buying a new motorcycle, so that's pretty well the end of that subject. So this did not work. So I still have the 20S. Put that aside for a second. And what I did is I went and bought the new Sena 50S set, which is top of the line that they have. Oddly enough, you should note, after everything I'm going to explain to you, if you want to get this, Harley no longer is going to carry it. So the dealers who have it in stock are the last dealers who have this available. So let's get on with this. So of course, there's better speakers in it. You also have mesh communication and Bluetooth. Just to explain, the Bluetooth communication that you have with it still works the way you know it from the 20S. The mesh, just so those who don't know what that is, you can, for example, set this on mesh channel 1 and put all your friends, just tell them to go with their headset. And from what I understand, different brands isn't an issue, it'll work. But if you go to channel 1, everybody's on channel 1, everybody can communicate. You don't need to pair things, you don't need to sync things. Everybody's on channel 1, it works very well, is my understanding of it. So let's get back to the Bluetooth. So connected this. Now what happens is, going back to this, the Boom GTS with the WHIM, with the 50S, absolutely spotless. Everything works very well. The Hey Siri, no more issues with it. The music is crystal clear just because the speakers are much better. I can communicate with my passenger. I can communicate with my friends around. Plus, I get the mesh that I just described. So it works really well. So the message I wanted to conclude to everybody here is, if you have a Harley with a Boom GTS, you're thinking of going over to the Cardo system, it's not going to be your answer. It just won't be your answer. So let's move to the second phase of this. So let's assume you have, let's say 2019, you don't have the WHIM, you don't care about that. All you want to do is communicate with your friends. That's not a problem. If you were going to choose, personally, truthfully, I would go with the Sena. And let me explain why. Here's my explanation as to why I prefer the Sena. The sound is just as good. I don't have an issue with the sound or anything. Where I found the big difference is, when you have the Sena, you have a big dial, you have big buttons. When you use gloves, or even with your fingers, you'll find this much easier while you're riding to activate, change something, whatever you want to do. It's a charm to work with. It's really, if you have big fingers or small fingers, it's the best. The issue that I found with the Cardo, because I used it for a while, is the buttons that are on here, if you take one out of the box, they're very small, they're pointy, and if you have gloves, you have a hard time detecting which button is which. So I found this, although much more compact as a unit, maybe lighter, but I found that the buttons are very challenging to press and to activate and to choose. Where the Sena, the buttons are much bigger, much more obvious, easier. Also when you click, it's just, click a little bit and it works. Here, if you want to turn it on, it's a hard press, 2 buttons to make sure you turn it on. So that's just as far as the unit itself. As far as communication, when it was hooked up with the WHIM, when I tried it, the music was okay, but there was a lot of sometimes static in the background of the music or anything. Again, I couldn't communicate with my passenger or anybody else. But the use that I made of it, the sound, like I'm sure worked fine if you were just using it between passengers and everything. But with the WHIM, because it's not designed for it, and I'm guessing because Sena made sure it wouldn't work with it, there's a bit of a static in the background. So it's not the most pleasant experience. Again, when you go back to the Sena, it's crystal clear. May it be speaking to your passengers, to your other friends, or listening to the radio, or speaking to Siri, it's crystal clear. So it's not a question, I think, of which is better. I think it's really a question of the Boom GTS and the WHIM is really designed around the Sena, and that's it. So that's my recommendation if you're looking to get either one of these two brands. I would like to answer a question that bothered me for a while, and then I figured it out. So let's assume for a second, let's stick with the Sena for a second. So when you get the Sena, there's an app for your iPhone, for example, that comes with it. So what can the app do? You go into the app, it's very simple, you set it up, and you can do any of the settings that you want on the Sena. In other words, you can activate, deactivate certain things, and the long list. You've probably seen other videos of it. The thing is, though, is if you're hooking this up through the WHIM on the Boom GTS, you do not want to have your Bluetooth connected to that app. Let me explain why. You need to choose one of the two. Either you're going to make all your settings and everything directly with the Sena. In other words, the app and the unit itself, you're going to use it, you're going to do your settings. For example, if you're riding a motocross bike, you want that because your friends who have also a Sena, you need to make your settings for whatever reason you have. So that's why they make the app. But the moment that you no longer want that, you want to use it with your Harley, you need to deactivate the Sena app, the Bluetooth portion of it. Make sure it doesn't work. Let me explain why. The way it seems to be done is either you use the WHIM with the settings of the Sena. In other words, all the settings of the Sena are on screen on your Boom GTS through the WHIM. So you have every setting that you have on the app, but you have it on the motorcycle itself. So that's where you're going to make your adjustments. So it's either one. Either you activate that everything works through the WHIM, operates, you don't use the app. You can adjust anything that you can adjust, usually with the app, you can adjust it through the radio itself. So that's what you do. If you're not using the motorcycle, and for example, you're using a motocross for the weekend with your friends and the bike is not even close, then you need to activate the app so you can adjust anything on this. You may want to or may not want to, but I'm just pointing out that if that's the way it is, you cannot have the app active, Bluetooth connected to this, and the WHIM connected to this with the Bluetooth and think one will talk to the other. Doesn't work. So save yourself the trouble, skip over that part. You need to make one or the other. I also wanted to add just one bit of information. You may have heard that from other videos, other reviewers that say that you can buy this little adapter at Amazon for, let's say, $10, $12, where you connect that into the radio and it allows you not to have a microphone and fool the system to use the Apple CarPlay. I just want to say it does work, but you're not going to be able to use any of the features of the wireless, of the WHIM, and so on and so forth. So if you have just a Boom GTS, you have no plans to get a wireless headset, no plans to have the WHIM, this will plug where the WHIM normally would connect. That's where this will connect. And what it will allow you to do is fool the system in the Boom GTS thinking that you have an active microphone that works, although you don't. And what that will do is it'll allow you to use the CarPlay feature from your iPhone. So you use this, you remove the cowl, you install it, take your iPhone wire into that little door that's on the control panel, hook up your phone, and what will happen is you're gonna get CarPlay. What will the benefits be? Well, you get CarPlay, you get Google Maps, you get all of that works. The music, though, will only play through the speakers of your motorcycle, which is probably just fine what you want to do because you probably have no intention of getting a wireless headset anyways. So it does work. I tried it, it works. I thought it would have been a solution to the Cardo or a solution to something else. It didn't work for that, but definitely what I concluded is it will work to get the Boom GTS radio to think that you've got a WHIM connected with a wireless headset and a microphone. So it works if you want to try it. But like I said, total conclusion to it. Once it's connected, CarPlay will work with a wired iPhone, and you're going to be able to use your Google Maps and everything, but the music will only come out through the speakers of your motorcycle. Just thought I'd add that in. So hopefully this will conclude any questions that you may have had relative to what is better as far as the Cardo or the Sena on a Harley-Davidson with a Boom GTS and a WHIM. Again, just to be clear, I'm not saying this is a bad product. I'm just saying that it's really not designed for the Boom GTS and the WHIM. So those who are using this, if you're buying a 2024 Skyline motorcycle with the Skyline radio, may it be the new Street Glide or Road Glide, whatever the case may be, chances are you need to go with the Cardo, because Cardo seems to be running the show as far as that new model year is concerned. If you're going to go and you're using or you're buying a used motorcycle and it comes with a Boom GTS radio, skip the Cardo. Don't go there. You need to go with the Sena. Harley-Davidson, from what I can gather, as I said before, seems to be narrowing it down from, they used to have the 20S, then they had the 30K, and then they had the 50S. From what I understand from the dealer, as I said, the 50S is discontinued because the dealer was telling me it's no longer in their system. They had it in stock, so I bought it. And the 30K seems to be in stock, and the 20S looks like it's fading away. So I think they're going to narrow it down to one. But the 30K, I think it's a nice piece. It's just a question that it may not have the speakers that the 50S has, so that's up to you to do your shopping. But if you, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but if you plan on using the Sena with the WHIM, with the Boom GTS, you need to get the Harley-Davidson branded one. Why? Because that's where you're going to get the stereo sound and most of the functions. You may not have, you will definitely not have stereo, and you'll lose a lot of the functions if you just buy a Sena off of Amazon, for example, and it's not a Harley branded model. So hopefully I've been able to answer a lot of the questions that some of you may have had in your mind about comparison between the Cardo and the Sena Harley-Davidson branded ones. So hopefully you've been able to gather what I've passed on to you, which is a lot of information. Anyways, good riding, enjoy yourself, be careful, and wish you the best. Take care, bye.